Hey there, welcome back or welcome to my channel if you're new here. This is not the 32-week bump date I thought I would be giving, but August 8th, 2020 will go down as one of the best days of my life. And so this video is part one of our birth story. Before I can talk about August 8th, I actually have to go back to August 6th, which was my appointment with my high-risk doctor that I see bi-weekly, and actually starting the following week I would have been seeing weekly. And so I went in, the babies were growing great, the amniotic fluids were great, everything was looking good, except my cervix had shortened 2 millimeters. Now, in the grand scheme of things, 2 millimeters is not a lot, but because my cervix had shortened so quickly 4 weeks prior, they wanted to do another FFN test, which is the fetal fibronectin, just to rule out preterm labor. However, once you had an exam, you have to wait 24 hours before you get swab done. So I had booked an appointment for Friday, August 7th to go in at 4 p.m. to redo that swab. I go in on Friday, I get the swab, no big deal. They said they were going to have it run stat and that I should get the results by around 6 p.m. So I went home, I was waiting, I didn't hear anything, so I figured, well, no news is probably good news. And at 10 o'clock, I get a call from an Arizona number that I don't recognize. It's actually the on-call MFM doctor, basically telling me that the lab unfortunately couldn't run the test, and so he didn't want to wait to send it to Monday to run. He wanted me to go in first thing Saturday morning to labor and delivery and get the swab done. That way I could wait, it would be done on site, and then we would just know the answer. But he was concerned because he had seen in my notes that I had gained 18 pounds in 2 weeks. He's like, I just want to rule out and get you monitored, and better safe than sorry. I don't think you need to go tonight, but I want you there first thing in the morning. So that's what I planned on doing. So I rolled up to labor and delivery on Saturday morning. I want to say I got there about 8:15, so I probably was checked in by 8:30, and I got assigned a lovely nurse. And at first I was a little bit surprised because she was hooking me up to the non-stress test. So like I had monitors around my belly. She was taking all my vitals. They were doing all the things that they had done on my 28-week appointment. I was like, I thought I was just here for a quick swab and gonna be out. Yeah, no. So that didn't happen. And they took my blood pressure, and my blood pressure was in the high 160s over 1 something. So that was like the first indication. And anytime you go into labor and delivery, they also take a urine sample. They check for obviously drugs, and then they're checking for other things in your urine. And one number that they looked at was protein, and you really should have 0. And mine came back as 3. So between high protein, high blood pressure, they wanted to continue monitoring me and see what would happen. So at that point, he's not an on-call MFM, but he's basically like the hospital consultant OB, I guess you could say, or MFM. He came in and talked with me and basically was telling me that he was pretty sure he was going to admit me, that the protein and then the high blood pressure, they wanted to monitor me and really make sure that I was okay and not going in preterm labor, especially since I had come in for the FFN test. Okay, so I called Kevin, and he had gone on a drive for the day, but luckily he was only in Long Beach. So I just said, they're thinking they're going to admit me. And at this point, we weren't thinking we were going to deliver. They're just going to monitor me, no big deal. But I wanted him to be there. I didn't want to spend the day in the hospital by myself. So I told him to turn around and come home. They had also drawn blood. The lab had come and drawn blood. And so around maybe 9:30, the doctor came back and said, okay, what was it? It was creatine something ratio. There's a ratio that really it should be 0. But if you have up to 0.3, you're okay. Mine was 4.7. So now we've got this creatine ratio, protein in my urine, and high blood pressure. And he was like, is your husband on the way? Because we're going to admit you. I think we need to get steroids started. We need to get you on magnesium. Like, he's kind of spitting all this stuff at me. And I was like, yeah, okay, let me call. So I call Kevin and to see where he's at, because now I'm like, I think we better get the hospital bags because I don't know how long we're going to be here. Kevin was almost to the hospital, so we had to turn back, go home, get our hospital bags, and then come back. So I officially got admitted maybe 10:30 or 11ish, and Kevin got there probably around 11:30ish. And so the on-call OB did come in, and she basically explained to me, look, we're going to get you steroids, we're going to get you on magnesium, blood pressure medications, like they're already starting to do all these things. But she said, the goal is to get you to Monday. We want to get you at least 2 doses of steroids so we can beef up the baby's lungs, but there is a good chance you're going to deliver today. Right now, we're not getting your blood pressure under control. We're seeing this happen. We're seeing that. So I just want you to be prepared that you may deliver today, but our goal is to get you to Monday. We'd really like to get those two doses of steroids in. So at that point, you know, we were already mentally preparing, but at the same time, we're like, no, this isn't really happening. I just came in for a quick swab. How are we at this point? At 12, they came in and they gave me the steroid shot in the butt, and then they also put a catheter in. So I don't ever remember having a catheter before. I probably did when I had my appendix out when I was a kid, but that was 20 something years ago. It was definitely an interesting feeling. I hope I never have to have one again. They put the catheter in, they got me on the magnesium, they started all these blood pressure medications. And then they also told me that they had to send some of my lab work down to San Diego for some special tests because they had found my blood came back with an antibody that they didn't know what it was. I'm not Rh positive, so they just didn't know what these antibodies were. So they decided to call up and make sure to have units of O positive on hand for me just in case I was going to need it in the future because they didn't know what these antibodies were. So over the next couple hours, they just kept monitoring me. They kept checking my blood pressure. And then around 4:30, I started telling the nurse that I was like, you know, I know I've never had a catheter before, but something doesn't feel right. It almost feels like the start of a UTI where I'm getting this burning sensation that I have to pee, but I'm not. And, you know, Kevin could see my output. There wasn't much coming out. And I was like, something just doesn't feel right. They took a look and noticed that my labius had swollen to like triple the size and was like, do you have a latex allergy? I was like, no, not that I'm aware of. I don't believe so. And they're like, I think we're going to take that catheter out. So they did. They took the catheter out. And then I had relief from that feeling of at least the burning sensation. And they put a wristband on saying that I'm allergic to latex, or at least that's what they think I am. Like all the time just starts blurring together. But the next thing that happened was at 8:30, they came in and said, okay, because they'd taken more blood, and they said, your liver enzymes are up, your white blood count cell is down, your this is that, your this is this, and all this stuff. And they said, you know, we are making the call that we're going to get those babies out tonight, and we're going to start prepping you for the OR right now. So they first had to put a new catheter in. That one went much better. I didn't feel it. It didn't, like, there was no discomfort. It was, so I don't know, I guess maybe I just randomly developed a latex allergy, but they got that all ready, and yeah, then we were prepped to go to the OR. So that's where I'll end this first video. Part 1 is basically how we ended up with, all right, we're taking you to the OR. I will say that throughout this whole experience, nurses, the doctors, everyone had just been so wonderful. They were communicating everything with me. At no point was I scared, was I stressed, was I nervous. I 100% trusted the decisions that were being made and that they had our best interest, you know, going forward. And the whole time the babies were perfectly fine on the monitors. They were not under any stress. It was me. It was, my body was just, I had went from having a mild case of preeclampsia to a severe case. And the scary thing is that if that on-call MFM wouldn't have told me to come in on Saturday morning, I would have gone all weekend and waited for results on Monday, which, by the way, did come back negative. I was not in preterm labor. I would have waited and my blood pressure would have been going up. I could have possibly had a seizure. Like, there's so many things that could have happened. And so I'm really fortunate that the MFM, you know, insisted on me going and that they did all these tests, because otherwise I would have just gone about my day, because I felt perfectly fine. There was no signs that anything was going on in my body. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for part 2. I'll be recording that in a couple days, and that'll talk more about like what actually happened with the C-section and the recovery and being in the hospital and everything. Thank you for watching. Go ahead and like and subscribe if you want future updates.